Well, hello, hello. One watching. How do I? Well, hello, hello. This can't happen. One watching. There we are. How can I tell if there is somebody chatting in? Because that's the whole name of this game is to have some interactive chat. I'm going to have to open up a YouTube window. Or is that just going to mess with me? Welcome aboard. This is the debut of the shit show. So bear with me while we get her dialed in. Let's see. Okay, there's a little delay. Somebody there in my live chat, or is that me? Hello. All right, well, welcome to my debut shit show. As you can tell, I've titled it Meconium. Sounds sort of like a Tool album, but it's the first poop. We've all had one, and as you can see, I'm in uniform tonight, shit show supervisor. So I'm ready to, take some callers, so to speak, some chatters, want to help problem solve. I'm an addictions counselor who has my master's degree in forensic psychology. So I've been prepared to work with people involved in some sticky situations and some troublesome times in their life. I also tend to say it takes one to know one. So definitely, hey, Vicky. Oh, cool. My first chatter. I don't know how long the delay is, but welcome aboard. Where is Vicky from this evening, or maybe morning where you're at? Here so I can see it better. Well, I'll just keep jibber jabbering here, since that's the name of this game, is just to kind of share a little bit about my mission and purpose. I believe that that's how we thrive in our best nature, is to find what helps us wake up every day and serve others, really. I have an attitude of gratitude, especially as we're entering into Thanksgiving and as we've come off of Veterans Day. Not to mention Election Day, right? Some things that we can be grateful for, the process of some freedoms here in America. That's what I ultimately strive to help people find, is their individual personal freedom. Sometimes, we can look at the larger systems and feel like that's what needs to change. But ultimately, if we can heal ourselves, then we can heal the world. So I hope to inspire individuals to look within, air out their shit, as the show is titled, and as my mission states, bring some of these tough topics to the table, and with no shame and no judgment, and to give people a safe space to share and connect and learn. I do hope to be able to educate people along the way. That's part of my purpose and meaning here, is to create a catalog of resources for people to fall back on and maybe listen to later, and better understand addictions, mental health, wellness, some of the tough topics like suicide, and disease, and how we end up in these situations. So we're going to be talking about the dark side, but what we do with when we shed light on that is allow it to be transmuted and take some of that pain and turn it into something positive. So I hope to look at things that people have struggled with in their life and allow people the opportunity to connect through those tough times. I think that's where most of us do probably find the important bonds in our lives, is when we're going through the toughest times. Those darkest days are when the people, the true loved ones, show up for us. And hopefully also what I can help us do with this channel is learn to show up for ourselves. I think loving each other can be a lot easier than loving ourselves. And so self-love is critical to recovery. When we are thinking about, getting in our best nature, well, that means getting yourself back into your body and being in love with that life that you're leading. I do believe that if we're not living, we're dying. There's no neutral zone where we can just kind of take a time out and chill. That's regressing. That's not fulfilling our ultimate purpose and meaning. Now, don't get me wrong, we all need to rest and recuperate and rejuvenate and all that restorative stuff. I'm no denying that. That's part of living. That's part of living. When we're self-harming and, taking the toxins or maybe consuming things, relationships, jobs, career paths, all sorts of things that we can be engaged in and consuming that aren't for our best selves, we can get lost. And that's what I've realized over time as an addictions counselor, is that what we're actually recovering, what recovery means, isn't necessarily getting a job, sobering up, paying your bills, getting back on track, but rather getting yourself back into your body. We've been dissociating. We've been tapping out, numbing out, escaping, some to the ultimate, right? As I mentioned with suicide. And we need to be present and conscious, awake and aware. That's what I want to help people experience, how consciousness is the new cool, and being present and tuned in for this shit show. That's where we get our power. We don't want to run from the bulls in Pamplona, Spain. We will get our asses trampled. You're much better off to survive this fight if you get in the ring and take that bull head on, and by the horns. So let me check and see if anybody's made any comments, or if anybody has any questions or concerns that they want to put out there. Oh, Kansas. We're not in Kansas anymore. Well, I am based in Colorado, and these Rocky Mountains are going to be part of my featured presentations. I'm going to take folks out in nature and truly get people in their best nature by showing up. Actions speak louder than words. And while I can sit here on this, therapy couch here, I also think the true healing is going to come when I get people out into these Rocky Mountains and into the woods and near the streams and waterfalls and wildflowers. And on top of these peaks, next week, ski resort opens up. So I'll probably be taking you on lift rides and all sorts of adventures. But that's the idea, is to focus on how our actions can guide us into the right direction. You'll probably see me doing this a lot, and it really illustrates how when our actions aren't in alignment with our values and our true self, we're off. We're feeling shitty, and we know it. And so we want to here's what happens. Here's the sad story about that. If our actions aren't in alignment with our values, sad news is sometimes people start changing their values. They get a case of the F-its and they're like, well, screw that. I don't care about that so much anymore. And then now they're falling further and further away from themselves. We need to bring ourselves back and get into our values, our core values, and that will help us stay in alignment. So thoughts are critical, and as a cognitive behavioral therapist, that's also a good place to start. We got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. And a lot of times our thoughts get the best of us. We can call it stinking thinking, cognitive distortions, personal lies, whatever it might be. Defense mechanisms, right? All of these aspects of denial, minimization, justification, blame, anything that is not allowing us to see the truth, and maybe our ego is blocking that as a protective measure. It's a protective measure. Our ego is there as a survival mechanism. However, we're not all in danger, gonna die. So we don't need to always be puffed up in this survival mode. We need to just chill down and relax and get embodied and, be present in all functions. Because when we're in fear mode, that takes us right out of our executive functioning, that prefrontal cortex that helps us to kind of pump the brakes and maybe not say things or do things you wouldn't normally want to do. But when you're in a fear or stressed state, we go into that emotional mind. That's a survival state and kind of puff up in defense mode. So not a lot of critical thinking going on, not a lot of executive functioning going on. And hey, do that long enough, be stressed out over time, live in a toxic environment. And that could be mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, right? We always tend to forget about that, but I want to bring that in because that's our essence, that's our self, that's what we need to recover is our spirit. All you cheerleaders in the house, you're like, we got spirit. Yes, we do. We got spirit. How about you? I don't know. Do ya? How is your spirit these days? Is the only way you elevate your spirit by drinking alcohol, those damn spirits? Or are those spirits bringing you down? We got to think about, where is my energy and can I do something about it? Yes, we can. We can change our tone through those thoughts again. And that's typically where we're kind of setting that tone. That's our narrative. That's our story. So if over time our stinking thinking is telling us one thing, well, our mood is going to align accordingly. And, we're going to kind of then act that way too. So we can put a wedge in any of those there. We can change our thoughts, we can change our feelings, or we can change our actions. It's really up to us to see. And, all three are going to really rock the project out if you get a handle on this whole concept of cognitive behavioral conditioning. Our thoughts trigger us, feelings trigger us, actions also trigger us. We can carve new paths by taking new action. I didn't believe I could climb a 14er, so I just did it. And now I believe it and I feel good about it. But if I would have believed that I couldn't, well, then I'd still be sitting on this couch and I wouldn't. So sometimes it isn't about our thoughts, but they sure do get the best of us. And so here comes this big hot concept these days of mindfulness. Have y'all heard of mindfulness? And really what that is, it's not having a full mind and seeing how many things you can do at once, multitasking. No, it's kind of the opposite. It's actually entirely the opposite. It's being fully present on what you're doing in the moment. So right now, hopefully, if you're listening to me, you're engaged and I'm here and we're engaging with one another to a certain degree. If you're driving down the road, or washing the dishes or doing something else, that might not be fully engaged. That's sort of multitasking. We get away with it all the time. We're constantly multitasking, but truth be told, the brain doesn't actually multitask. We can really only do one thing at once. So it's switching. We're constantly switching and toggling from one activity to another. I mean, imagine playing a video game and constantly being interrupted. It's going to be taxing. You might crash the car or whatever you're playing. Mario might fall down the chute, the poop chute. So yeah, we want to be present. And then the gift of the present is that then we are sensible. We've come to our senses. Sight, sound, taste, touch, smell. Oh, wait, I already said that one. Sight, sound, taste, touch. What am I missing? Sight, sound, taste, touch. Somebody. Oh yeah, what is wrong? Smell? Am I not saying smell? Gosh, and it's the shit show, and we're supposed to be smelling our shit. Gosh. Okay, so once we find all of our senses and we come to our senses, then we can tap into the sixth sense. That's our gut, that's our intuition, and that's where maybe our true superpowers lie, our spidey senses, where we actually have more than what meets the eye or ear or nose or tongue. So, it's pretty amazing what our brain-body connection affords us when we're in it. If we're not zombied out or checking out, some scrolling, head in the sand, in the clouds, where are we? If we're not present, we're going to miss out on a lot, and we might be in danger. That's where I feel like it becomes a survival thing. If you're not living in full presence in the now, you're dying, you're missing out, you're not actively engaged, and you are vulnerable for attack. Spiritually, mentally, physically, emotionally. I mean, that's how you get put on these puppeteer strings. I'm not against capitalism, but I do have trouble with consumerism. And when we're getting hooked and pinned on these patterns that aren't super healthy for us to be consuming all sorts of stuff. What are we eating? What are we drinking? What are we watching? What are we listening to? What are we truly engaged in? It's unknown. Some people don't even realize it. They're just it's part of their programming. So welcome to the program. What I want to help people do is reprogram, because as much as we can carve those paths and create bad behaviors and feel like we're stuck in those ruts, truth be told, we can bail our asses out of them and get in those trenches. Though it's going to take a little work, but we can dig the trench and carve a new path. Find ourselves in that resurrection or excavation process, so to speak, getting down and dirty, digging. That I like to think that down in the dark, what do they say? You got to hit rock bottom, in recovery and all that. Well, sweet. Thank God I'm down here at rock bottom, because that's where all my treasures sank to, right? When I threw this overboard and I tossed that out and said, screw this, and started selling out, we tossed it all overboard. Well, good news is our treasures are down there. And that's what I think is cool about being in the dark pit, the rock bottom, is that when you start digging around in there, not only are you going to find your power and your personal truth, but your freedom, believe it or not. Because that's getting that spirit back, those things that you love. A lot of people say, I want to get back to my old self. It's like, no, you don't. You don't want to get back to your old self. You want to get to the self that you never allowed yourself to be. That's what we want to do. When we're talking about recovery, we want to get our spirit back into our body so that we can meet that higher level that we've never believed or allowed ourselves possible. But it's so achievable. That's the power of the thoughts and the emotions and the actions, is that once we start to realize we have free will and autonomy and choice, then we can do anything. I've seen so many people lately that have been inspiring with their personal missions and just declaring that they're going to do something. So, what better time for me to just go ahead and drop this deuce, so to speak, as I like to use as many poop references as possible. So let's see if there's any questions or comments from anyone here. Oh, Vicky. Smell. Thanks, AD. Yes, I couldn't believe it. And sniff that one out. Oh, great. Well, welcome, you guys. Thank you for joining me and listening to me jibber jabber. I didn't necessarily have an agenda other than introducing myself, introducing the concept of the show, seeing how I can help folks. Eventually, maybe we can have people hop on and take virtual callers. But I got thinking, the beauty of doing it this route with a chat is people can still remain semi-anonymous and confidential, at least. We don't need to air out anybody's personal name or private information, but we can still be of service and help connect through this platform without having to show our face and whatnot. So it dawned on me that maybe we don't have to always have like a visual, but rather a type or an audio. If anybody ever wanted to call in, we could go that route too, to hear some voices and feel those feelings together, share that vibe. There is something to be said about hearing a voice and getting a feel for a person. True connections there, but not necessary. I mean, that's the beauty of this YouTube platform, is that I hope to reach people who might not otherwise have the opportunity to get tapped into some of this knowledge. I'm going to cover a variety of topics. A lot of shame and stigma and hiding out is just part of this culture. It's a sad lifestyle to be in such hiding and such, constant state of avoidance. So if I can bring a platform or a medium to the table here and channel some messages so people can pick up on that without even having to type or do anything, that's really what I hope to do. There's plenty of people out there who maybe know what I'm talking about, and that's not who I'm directing these messages to entirely. I'm trying to connect with some people who maybe haven't taken the time to think about this much, haven't offered themselves the opportunity maybe to sit and ponder. Self-love looks different in all shapes and forms. So just sitting and listening to somebody's thoughts and then taking the time to think your own is might be new for some people, and I hope to inspire that. So over time, we'll give some tips and tricks and tools and different tactics to use as some self-help. Maybe I'll lead some guided meditations. I've got a really cool exercise on kind of finding that higher self, that observer you. When we think of mindfulness and going back to that concept of being present, how do I know I am? Who's watching? Well, there's a part of us that's watching ourselves, right? Like our conscious. That's kind of what I think about in the AA model when they talk about find your higher power. I'm like, yeah, find that executive functioning, find that prefrontal cortex, that CEO within yourself that is the boss. Find your boss, man. And That's your higher power. Cut those puppet strings, get off that conditioned response. Let's quit with the programming and create our own program, right? And so how can we raise personal awareness through mindfulness, self-observation, and consciousness? Like I say, raising awareness and awakening to our full potential. Cool, cool. Well, gosh, you're still hanging with me, it looks like. Any questions or stories or personal testimonies that anybody'd like to share about mental health struggles, friends, family, personal, any addictive behavioral troubles? It doesn't always have to be chemical addictions. A lot of people have behavioral struggles, think gambling or social media, relationships, codependency. That's something I really want to talk about too. When we think about recovery and getting ourselves back, it doesn't even take a drug or a chemical to lose ourselves, but relationships. And then this notion of being codependent and maybe addicted to love, and what different addictions look like, but how they're all still rooted in this notion that we've lost ourselves. We've sold out. We've sold ourselves out for somebody else. And then we're sitting here like, what the heck? What about me? Yeah, that's where we start to get the interpersonal conflicts and running into trouble with people, enabling enmeshment. There's just so many systematic variables at play when we think about how addictions and, as I said, behavioral disorders and just mental health troubles at large, which I kind of believe, I look at those through the lens of addiction. I believe depression is an addiction. Anxiety is just an addiction. It's all these programmed states, right, where we're seeking something. Because truth be told about addictions, it's not actually the drug we're hooked on. It's the anticipation of that we get the dopamine dumps. We're really hooked on dopamine. That's the reward chemical reinforcement, so to speak. That's like, yeah, let's do that again. Once again, think of gambling addictions. They're not addicted because they're winning all the time. Cha-ching! Show me the money. That'd be awesome, right? I'd get addicted to that. But that's not how it works. They're addicted to here we go, the thought, the cognitive distortion, the false belief, the stinking thinking, the wish, the hope. Oh, now we're talking about hopes and dreams, and that gets us into the feelers, the feelies, the emotions. So it doesn't even have to be real. It doesn't even have to be happening for us to get addicted to it. Think love. Think of your first partner or your current partner, and when you fell in love with them, that was a lot of chemical concoctions, I guess, maybe duping us a little bit, giving us all sorts of feels and pairing it with a person. So we've got this conditioned response where it's like we're addicted to this person, but what we're actually addicted to is what we expect of this person. Because how the heck do you fall out of love with somebody? Same way we kind of kick our addictions. They don't work anymore. They're not doing it for us anymore. Like, you're going to need more to get the same effect. You've got a tolerance or maybe an intolerance to these people, right? Like they aren't giving you the fix anymore. So that's why love and marriage is a active process. It doesn't just fall out of the sky. You got to work towards it. That's where actions speak louder than words. You don't just sit back and get it. You have to go towards it. Just like motivation, most of these emotions that we experience, you got to kind of meet them halfway. And the bummer about that, when we talk about addictions and motivation and willpower, you just gotta want it, right? That's the part of the brain that's damaged. So you want to kick these addicts in the ass and be like, come on, you just gotta want it. But it's like spinning wheels almost in reverse with bald tires, because that part of the brain has lost its tread. Like, what willpower? Lost that when I, got into this more primitive brain state, into that emotional mind, or even further, if they're even more sedated, we just get into the survival mode. That is no way to live. That's the way to die. Living in survival mode. We want to be in thrive mode. We want to thrive. We want to get in your best nature so that you can chill down and relax and grow and be your best self. This constant state of stress, and then stress avoidance. Because if you really boil down all these addictions, all these diseases, obesity, cardio, everything, diabetes, asthma, all this is stress related. It's an improper response to how we're managing our stress. And first and foremost, perceiving stress. Because something that happens to you, that happens to me, that happens to next person down the street is going to affect us all differently based on our resiliency, our environment, our coping mechanisms. A ton of variables are going to impact how we roll through the stress. It might not even be a stressor, but others perceive things that are non-issues as major stress. And so we're just constantly, as I haven't lately, but if anybody has turned on the news or a TV, I haven't in years, I hear that's a stressful experience. I hear that if you watch the nightly news or see any of what's going on out there, it can be pretty stressful. And so it's all around us. And so when we're living in this constant state of stress, not only does our body feel that and take that on as disease, but how ironic that then our coping mechanisms, eating, gaming, socializing, drinking, all this is not healthy, also not helping the stress. But did we know that? Did anybody teach us that or tell us that? It hasn't been until like the past 10 years that I finally learned that alcohol was actually a carcinogen, a cancer-causing agent. Alcohol? Yeah. It is tied to at least 10, if not 15, like a real direct correlation, like pretty significant connections to 10 to 15 cancers. In women, breast cancer in particular. And I've had clients who are like, yeah, I struggle severely with alcohol use disorder and I've had breast cancer. Wow, that ain't no coinky dink. There's a trauma therapist, Vandercook. Don't quote me on his last name, but he's renowned in checking out how the body keeps the score. He wrote a book on that trauma, on how the body keeps the score. And if you don't process your stress or your traumas in a healthy way immediately, and you start shoving that shit down and you start packing that on and you don't expel that, shake it off, you're going to essentially get constipated with that shit. And you'll feel it in your body. You'll get backaches. You'll have neck aches. You'll feel the pain in your ass, right? It's going to suck if you don't rid ourselves of this stress. It blew my mind to learn that massage therapists actually experience kind of the release, allowing some of their clientele to release some of this trauma. They hit a sweet spot that maybe has been holding some jam-packed trauma in their body. And they're like working the body and they release it. And people, they don't know where it comes from. This is very unconscious process. And the people will just burst out in tears on the table. I'm like, like a cathartic release, because we need that. We can't hold this in our body. We got to get it out. But what we are doing almost on a daily basis in a variety of ways is we're just kind of putting it in our system even deeper and not facing it. And so here lies the intention of my channel once again, is so that we're not clogging the toilets. Much better to get the plunger out and like take care of the problem before it gets too bad, because you do not want to have a whole septic system going out. It's embarrassing to call the plumber, I know, but it would be way more embarrassing to have the whole city block torn up because your shit clogged the sewer system. Metaphorically speaking, we can affect others as well. So heal yourself, heal the world. If you can process and unclog your junk and crap and face it and share it, not suggesting that we go slinging it in people's face or, abusing others with our problems, but rather acknowledging them, looking at it, taking its power away by checking in on it, kind of like getting in the ring with the bull, because you're going to have a much better fighting chance of facing that shit head on versus running from it. You're bound to get trampled eventually running from them. So here we are looking at our personal human nature. It's human nature. We all do it every day. One of the things that probably inspired me most to start this particular channel with this particular goal is that I'm so sick of looking at people's freaking meals on Facebook. Like back in the day when everybody's posting their fancy food and whatnot. I'm like, yeah, what about the other end of the story? It's coming out the other end and it ain't pretty. But no one talks about that. No one's posting their big dumps on Facebook. Thankfully, rightfully so. At least we can't smell that virtually. But regardless, maybe we should. Maybe if you want to brag about the lovely meal you ate, maybe I want to hear about how it gave you gas too, and how you're up at 3 a.m. with the shits, because it looks good, but it might not always be the case. And fake news, I've had enough of it. We don't need any more of that. Yeah, maybe it's not fake news because it's the real meal, but there's more to the story. There's a lot more to the story, and there's a lot more than meets the eye. And I think that's where, if we can sit in our human nature and sit in our shit and allow it to surface, and without shame, because everybody has it, everybody does it. You'd be weird if you didn't. People get sick when they don't, right? Like the body keeps the score. We have to process through all of this. It's a detox. Our body knows what to do too. We cry. We cry when we're upset because it releases chemical endorphins and, healing feelings. Feelings aren't good or bad too, by the way. When I mention it, I mean, we have emotional experiences that are informative. They're chemical messengers. It's just little messages getting sent across the brain. A lot of us tend to label our feelings as good or bad, but let's forget about that. Feelings are just information. And if we can start just looking at it like information, then maybe we won't be so offended by it or freaked out or afraid to face it. Maybe we won't be in such denial and fear of our feelings if we just recognize that it's our nature trying to talk to us and tell us if we're on point or not, right? That's our consciousness. That's our higher power. That's your superpower that allows you to be free. And so there we are, came full circle a few times with my ultimate goal of freedom, being empowered, being in our best nature, facing the troubles that we all have collectively. We can't save the world, we can't change the world, but if we can focus on ourselves, we can sure have a good impact on the world. So thanks for joining the debut shit show, the Meconium session, the first poop. It's been fun. I appreciate the company, and I'm probably gonna turn this into a video that people can take a look at later. I'll create a little catalog of resources here, and I'll start picking some specific topics to chat about while we wait for maybe people to chime in and get some conversations going amongst the group members here. That would be great. But if not, I'll have some topics to chit chat about, and maybe some tools and resources that we can all engage in and share a little bit too. So thanks again. Really appreciate you all joining the show tonight. Thanks so much, and we'll catch you next time.